Well, Ubisoft has been struggling, that much has been very evident, and it's too bad because I do like Ubisoft, they make great stuff. Assassin's Creed, Rayman, Far Cry, X-Defiant, Tom Clancy games, the list can go on, and for many reasons, probably not just one. Yeah, Ubisoft has really been struggling. I think the main thing that has really gotten in the spotlight as of recent has been kind of the pushback of the new Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Shadows. For a few different reasons, it hasn't been received very well, and that's just from what people have seen from the promotional material. It hasn't even been released yet, and in fact, it has been pushed back. Yeah, it was recently pushed back to February of 2025. I don't think a release pushback has ever happened this close to the release of an Assassin's Creed game. So yeah, it unfortunately is a pretty big deal right now with Ubisoft. Just in the last month, the stock has hit like a 10-month low, and also in the last month, really in the last week or two now, we've heard rumors that Ubisoft is really considering what to do with this company going forward. I've even heard that they are going to maybe make the company go from public to private. You even had an investment firm called AJ Investments make basically an open letter to Ubisoft. This was last month, and keep in mind this is a company that owns less than 1% of Ubisoft's share, but they basically made an open letter to Ubisoft urging them to consider a lot of different changes and basically to consider their options, with one of those being privatization. Well, today something big has come out. Bloomberg has made a very big report that two giants behind Ubisoft, which are Tencent and the Guillemot family, are strongly considering a buyout option for Ubisoft, which would privatize the company. Now, you might not be familiar with those two parties, or maybe you're only familiar with one, but Tencent is a huge Chinese media conglomerate, and the Guillemot family are some of the big people behind Ubisoft's creation, I believe. Yves Guillemot, for example, is the CEO and chairman of Ubisoft, and I believe they are the two biggest shareholders in Ubisoft. The Guillemot family owns 15% of the shares, and Tencent owns just under 10%. So that would mean the two of them together, if they are considering this option of privatization or some sort of an overall buyout, that would mean that just those two alone, they have 25% of the power to make this happen. And then it's also worth mentioning that that company I talked about, AJ Investments, that only owns like less than 1% of Ubisoft, this wasn't reported at the time of the open letter about a month ago, but I guess now they have gained the support of 10% of the shareholder base of Ubisoft. Now, I don't know if that necessarily includes Tencent and or the Guillemot family. It doesn't sound like it does, but yeah, I guess AJ Investments has gotten 10% of the shareholder support to basically back this stance that Ubisoft needs to consider their options and kind of do some sort of a structural rework. So altogether, with Tencent, the Guillemot family, and AJ Investments support, this would be about 35% of Ubisoft's shareholder base, which would mean that if all three parties were interested in some sort of a big structural change like privatization, and all of the shareholders at Ubisoft voted on it, it would probably happen. Now, keep in mind that if the company actually did go private, there could be a lot of different ways that that could turn out. You know, maybe Ubisoft would be owned by a lot of different investment firms, or maybe just Tencent would buy out all of the shares, or maybe they would share that with the Guillemot family. Yeah, there could be a lot of different ways it could shape up, but the point is that it would be completely closed off to public investments. There would be no more stock market for Ubisoft, which, by the way, the stock in Ubisoft has actually increased over 30% today just by this report. I mean, that's actually crazy, especially for people who do have a lot of stock in Ubisoft. It is a good contrast to see when, you know, in the past year, actually 2 or 3 years now, but especially in the last year, while some companies in the media sector of the world have gone up in stock, Ubisoft has just kind of continued to go down, unfortunately. So an increase in the stock is definitely a good thing to see. But obviously, looking at the big picture here, yeah, how will this turn out? And you know, people have pointed out with this report that every few years, it would seem that Ubisoft kind of has this threat, quote unquote, of going private. Like a few investment firms here and there want to privatize the company, but it would seem that now, more than ever, the idea that Ubisoft could go private seems to be much more of a possibility. I mean, don't be fooled. This company is going nowhere. You know, Ubisoft isn't dying or anything crazy like that. You see some people saying that. You know, privatization, while definitely a sign that things could be not going the best, it's sometimes just a necessary step for companies that find themselves in a situation such as this. It could very much benefit the company in the long run. We'll have to wait and see. Ubisoft is going nowhere. I feel it still has a strong future in the long long run, but it's clear that some sort of big structural changes are now a huge possibility.